This is scary. Parking garage that collapsed right there, one dead. Very, very treacherous situation there. And then you begin to think, what more? How stable are things? Here's what we know. One person dead, multiple injured in a deadly New York City parking garage collapse that happened in Lower Manhattan on Tuesday afternoon. I want you to watch this.
They're climbing up. You see them? Yeah. They're searching.
Oh my God, stop. Why am I emotional right now?
Because this is tragic.
Bro, what the fuck? Bro, I hope nobody died.
I don't think anyone died.
Insane. I hope no one's hurt. Yeah, there was someone stuck on the fire escape outside. They got down.
Oh, that's good.
Oh no.
Well, you heard one of the witnesses to some of this say, I don't think anybody died. Again, one person died in this New York City parking garage collapse. Took place on Ann Street near Nassau Street around 4 p.m. when, according to senior FDNY officials, the second floor of a 5-story parking garage collapsed into the first floor. Ultimately, the top floor would fall all the way down into the cellar in this pancake collapse, and screams for help could be heard in a cell phone video taken by a witness. Officials confirmed one person, a worker in the building, died in that collapse. FDNY Chief of Fire Operations, there he is, John Esposito, said this: as far as we can tell, so far there were 6 patients, 6 workers in the building at the time of the collapse. One worker was trapped on one of the upper floors. The FDNY was able to evacuate that person across the roof of another building. He was taken away from there. One worker died, 4 others were hospitalized, but were expected to recover. Esposito said one of the victims could be seen taken away on a stretcher. Another worker refused medical attention at the scene. Very scary stuff. NBC News among those reporting this. Esposito described the rescue operation as, quote, extremely dangerous due to the unstable building, and firefighters who had initially entered the building were forced to retreat as a result of the risk of instability. The department sent a newly added NYPD robotic dog known as DigiDog into the building to analyze the scene, make sure no one else was inside without putting in jeopardy the safety of first responders. Drones were also being used to get additional information from the scene, according to Esposito. Although Esposito said first responders believed everyone is accounted for, they will continue to search for any person, that's just horrific to think about, possibly trapped in the crushed cars or amid the concrete rubble of the collapsed garage. NYC Department of Buildings Acting Commissioner Kazimir Valenchik described how the drone footage showed how the 4-story building all the way pancaked, collapsed all the way to the cellar floor. There's more. He acknowledged that an active violation on the building dated to 2003. Buildings commissioner said an application was filed in 2010, but did not indicate whether that violation was corrected. There are some active permits on the building, one related to electrical work on the premises. Valenchik added, promising more details at a later time. That from Fox News. Our engineers deployed and are currently checking adjoining buildings and observing footage from drone pictures to identify possible reasons for the collapse. We're going to continuously review and research property profiles to understand the history of the building, certificate of occupancy, and all other records, and I will update this information. NYC Department of Buildings records show that the parking garage located at 57 Ann Street had 19 violations that had been completed or defaulted on, and another 4 that remained open, requiring a certificate of correction. WABC reported that the same parking garage owned by 57 Ann Street Realty Association, based in Great Neck, New York, had 64 violations with the Department of Buildings dating back to 1976. This is a tragedy, and I don't know that we know the proportions yet. We do know that one person lost their lives. Okay, but so that's one building worker. But when you talk about a history of such violations, and again, we don't know what caused all this, but it reminds me not on the same scale when it comes to the mortality rate, but that condo collapse down in Florida on the beach, and they learned about maintenance that wasn't done and all kind of violations. And I guess what I'm saying, Benny, is what good is there to have this department that oversees these things if the worst happens and we still don't know if work was completed on time or at all?
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate reality is all across the country, the number one priority is not necessarily like the safety or structural soundness of any particular building, but the profitability for real estate investors. And that is really always the way that it's been in the United States. I mean, real estate investors are some of the biggest donors to political campaigns on both sides for a reason. And so, while yes, we do have infrastructure in place to make sure that there are like building codes that are being met, unfortunately, you see a lot of buildings across the country that face a lot of neglect. Not to say that the violations that existed were necessarily the cause of the collapse, because we obviously don't know the cause of the collapse, but in general, speaking generally about the structural soundness and safeness of buildings across the country, there is a long-term pattern that exists of different building violations not being taken super seriously by city councils, not being like super investigated, of money and resources not really going into making sure that places are safe. All of these things are sort of systemic problems that are really stemming from the underlying root problem that we fundamentally allow landlords and real estate investors to have too much political power and influence in this country. So long as we are making decisions, at the electoral level about what is going to be the most profitable for real estate investments, we are always going to be missing things when it comes to safety and things like that.
Wow. I think it's well said. Again, there's a lot more that we need to learn here, and we'll keep following it. But you just feel for people who just went to work that day. Some will get back to the loved ones injured, and then mentally, how would you feel if you were part of that? But at least one is never coming home.